Hey there, Big Anklevich here, podcaster, author, and toy enthusiast. It's Halloween time, and is there any other character that could possibly be more appropriate for an October show than the Marvel Legends Jack-o'-lantern figure? Let's check it out here on Big Anklevich on Toys.
And I, Jack, the Pumpkin King, have grown so tired of the same old thing.
The Marvel Legends Jack-o'-lantern figure came out in the Absorbing Man wave in 2016. His time has long since passed. But you can still find him, and for about the same that he originally sold for back when he was new. I didn't get him back in 2016, but I picked one up just a few weeks ago on Amazon for $20. I really like how he looks. He'll be perfect for a Halloween display. But who is Jack-o'-lantern? He's a relatively obscure bad guy in the Marvel stable. He is usually a Spider-Man villain, but he doesn't have the cachet of Doc Ock or Green Goblin, although his suit often makes him look like Green Goblin in a different mask. So where'd he come from? I say we take a look at his first appearance, and his second appearance for that matter, and we learn a bit more about Mr. Jack-o'-lantern. Jack-o'-lantern made his first appearance not in Spider-Man, but in Machine Man number 19, also known as Machine Man's last issue. Check out this banner at the bottom of the cover. Complete your collection special, or guess what mag won't have a 20th issue. That's an interesting way to promote your low-selling, now-canceled series finale, eh? Kind of surprising that they would introduce a new character in a dead and nobody is reading it book like that. But my guess is that the decision to cancel came down well after they'd gotten started on the issue. Machine Man is as obscure as Jack-o'-lantern is. He was created by Jack Kirby in 1977 for a 2001 A Space Odyssey comic book adaptation. He was later given his own series and brought into the regular Marvel 616 universe. The series went 10 issues, then faltered, went on hiatus for 9 months before being relaunched. This time it only made it 9 issues before being cancelled. Machine Man also has a Marvel Legends figure. He was in the All-Father wave from 2015, and you could probably get his figure for less than its original retail price easily right now. Funny thing is, after reading Machine Man number 19, I almost feel like I want it. I guess it doesn't take much to get me to want to buy a toy. Machine Man is an android, but he poses as a full-on human, with his secret identity of Aaron Stack. The issue begins with Machine Man trying to figure out what to do about the damage his fake human face received in the battle that took place in the previous issue. Yeah, looks pretty bad. He gets his mechanic friend Gears Garvin to see what he can do, and in the meantime he employs the most time-tested of disguises, a trench coat and a fedora. Just like Raphael in the Ninja Turtles movie. If it works for giant mutated turtles, it ought to work for a droid, right? Machine Man walks off into the night, and we get that first appearance of our man, Jack-o'-lantern. He has a gang of thugs that he is readying for some kind of caper. But before they launch this caper, he tests out the new recruits with a challenge. He'll give them 10 grand if they can best him. They can't, of course. Jack-o'-lantern is a bad-A. He's got gas grenades, a helmet with its own air supply, body armor that can stand up to anything short of a bazooka, a wrist blaster, and he isn't afraid to use it. Only Boy Scouts play fair, he says. He wipes the floor with the new recruits, then tells the others to get ready because they're going to make themselves a bunch of money here soon. The next day, Machine Man's disguise face is fixed, and he goes back to work where they are having a meeting about a new embassy design that their insurance company has come up with. It is insurance and not architect. Okay. It's a new embassy that is super resistant to terror attacks. Keep in mind this comic book came out in February of 1981. The Iran embassy hostages were only freed a month earlier. This was a pretty timely topic. Machine Man's company is going to have a big costume party and unveil the embassy on Halloween, and his boss wants him to make sure nothing bad happens. Weirdly, this is the February issue, but it's set at Halloween. Just before the embassy is about to open, Machine Man notices a notorious gangster taking pictures of the place, so he follows him to learn what plans he might have. He spies on them through the skylight of their hideout, But without warning, the roof collapses and he is dropped down into the criminals' midst. They attack, but Machine Man defeats them with relative ease. Then Jack-o'-lantern takes him on. Jack zaps him with his wrist blaster and then takes off to complete his plan at the embassy. Unfortunately for Machine Man, the wrist blaster is a significant weapon. It fries his circuits for a while and melts his face again. He tries to follow Jack-o'-lantern and his gang, but they lose him, so he goes to the embassy party to make sure everything is okay. He sees some kids in Superman and Batman costumes, so he buys the Superman mask off the kid and tries to hide his melted face with it. But the folks that he works with goad him about his costume, or lack thereof, and eventually pull the mask off to see his actual robot face beneath. They think that it's another costume and are amazed at how good it is. Jack-o'-lantern and his crew come to the embassy with ill-gotten invitations, and they get the security team to give them a tour that includes a look at the control center. They gas the techs there and take over, shutting the blast doors. Open the blast doors. Taking everyone there hostage. Not to worry, gas doesn't bother Machine Man, and he can interface with the main computer using his finger attachments and get it to shut down all of its hostage-taking activities. Jack-o'-lantern and his crew discover that they've lost control of the embassy, and Jack goes to find out what's up. He and Machine Man have a ferocious battle in which Jack uses a smokescreen bomb, has his flunkies attack all at once, uses a concussion bomb, but he never really uses the one weapon that fried Machine Man the last time, the wrist blaster. He does shoot it, but has stormtrooper-like precision.
And these last points, too accurate for sand people. Only Imperial stormtroopers are so precise.
Eventually, Jack-o'-lantern goes into the area of the embassy where all the people are, so he can use them as hostages to buy his freedom. I love this guy. Madre de Dios! Machine Man follows, so Jack decides to throw one of his grenades into the crowd and use the chaos that creates to beat his hasty escape. But Machine Man makes a magnetic force field around Jack, and the grenade's force is therefore all focused on him, rendering him unconscious. But not dead. His body armor and pumpkin helmet spared him death. Then, in true Marvel fashion, as we will see in the second half of the show, there is the patented downer ending. Everybody looks at Machine Man with fear and distrust. Despite the fact that he saved their lives, no one tries to thank him. And that's that. Machine Man walks off into the night alone and bereft of that secret identity he once used to fit in. And this book, and the series, ends on this interesting line. I intend to be around for a long, long time.
A long time. A long time.
A long time, Machine Man? Really? Should I refer you to the banner on the front cover? So, there's Jack-o'-lantern's first appearance. Now, this book was written by Tom DeFalco, who is among the legends of comic book writers, but we'll just say this wasn't one of his best. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. I mean, Jack-o'-lantern actually calls Machine Man a rascally robot at one point during their fight. Am I the only one that thinks that is pure cheese? Machine Man, who is an unfeeling robot that can't manage to fit in with humans, quips like Spider-Man when he fights the bad guys. If I dropped in at a bad time, just say so and I'll be happy to leave. Plus, there were so many times when people's thoughts were used like a bludgeon to make sure we know exactly what's going on. Most egregious was the meeting scene where they talk about the embassy, and then, even as the plans for the embassy party are outlined, 2 minds are elsewhere. Pam, Pam, you affect my circuitry in weird and wonderful ways. But you need a man of flesh, not metal. And Pam thinks, Aaron, can't you see that I love you?
As the world turns. Brought to you today by Ivory Soap.
I love how romance plots are always tacked on in old comics in such ham-fisted ways. But there are some good things as well. I really liked how they set Jack-o'-lantern up to be such a formidable enemy. He beats up a bunch of his own recruits first to show that he's tougher than regular thugs. Then Machine Man accidentally stumbles into his hideout and Jack beats him quickly and badly, leaving him scrambled and melty-faced. So, How can Machine Man possibly beat him when it comes to the finale? He feels like a real threat, as opposed to, I don't know, Skeletor and his goons, or Cobra Commander and his troop of marksmen. Steve Ditko, who is another comic book legend, was the one who penciled this book. And again, it's not exemplary of his work. I don't know, maybe he was rushing through it because it had already been canceled and he had 10 other books that he had to draw that month as well. But a lot of these pictures look like something a chump like me could draw. Specifically, our subject matter, Mr. Jack O'Lantern. His head looks so poorly done most of the time. Considering how awesome the figure looks, it's strange that this was its starting point. But we're not going to end on that low note, because the story didn't end there. In Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man number 56, Spider-Man takes over and finishes this first tale of Jack-O-Lantern's first appearance. This is the July issue of that same year, and you can see, just from the cover, that we are already in for something more, something better than the Machine Man book. Spider-Man is the marquee character, and they're going to take care of that guy as best they can. For example, the book is written by Roger Stern and penciled by Jim Shooter. The Jim Shooter who was also the chief editor at Marvel at the time. Seems like the big boss isn't going to be drawing any old book. He'll take only the most important ones, I would think. So Spider-Man happens to be lurking around the hospital, looking to get some pics of something interesting for his paparazzi job, when they bring the comatose body of Jack-O-Lantern in. That guy's weird, Spider-Man thinks. I should get some pics just in case I can earn a little cha-ching, cha-ching. He heads to the Daily Bugle and arrives just as they're about to go to print on the story about the embassy attack. And they're lamenting the fact that they don't have any pictures. So, for once, things work out well for Spidey. He forces J. Jonah Jameson to cut him a check right then and there, then turns over the pics. Maybe he should turn his business activities over to his Spidey sense. He might get out of his endless financial problems.
Peter Tinkle.
Don't worry, things won't be going well for your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man for long. They stick Jack-O-Lantern into the prison ward at Bellevue, where they have all the supervillains who had a bad time of their last go-around, like Vulture and Nitro. They can't get Jack out of the costume, however, so he's there in full gear, and the policeman is even standing by with his sombrero. Wait, why does he have a sombrero? Oh, that's his pogo platform thing. Held that way, it looks like... Okay, moving on. Jack-O-Lantern's thugs start working on a plan to break him out of Bellevue. They get a fake ID and show up at the hospital pretending to be telephone repairmen. You remember telephones that had wires that went through the walls and the ground and telephone poles and stuff? No? Okay, well that was a long time ago. Jack-O-Lantern wakes up and throws the policeman keeping watch in his room out the door and into the wall in the outside hall. Jack grabs his sombrero and goes outside to meet his gang and subdue everyone else out there. Jeez, look at the art here. This long shot of Jack-O-Lantern looks better than even the close-ups from the Machine Man book. But look at the close-up! This guy looks like a real villain instead of one of my doodles. Jack takes over the hospital, taking hostages and making demands for millions in ransom and a plane out of the country and the like. The kind of stuff that you used to hear terrorists demand back in the 70s and 80s when times were simpler.
Before the dark times. Before the Empire.
A lot of Obi-Wan today. Peter Parker gets a call from Aunt May telling him about the hostage situation. Her friend Nathan happens to be at the hospital for some sort of treatment for his legs. Aunt May is worried and wants Peter to come and stay with her and comfort her until it's all resolved. Peter says that he will, but first, he heads off to the hospital to make sure that Aunt May has no reason to be upset. He's going to free the hostages from Jack-O-Lantern himself. He swings to the hospital and uses a seaplane that is taking off from the river to fling him up onto the roof. He sneaks around as silently as he can, trying to find where the hostages are and free them without alerting the bad guys. At last, he overhears two talking about it, but he gets caught and has to beat them up before heading off to help. And the noise of it alerts Jack-O-Lantern to his presence. In the room with the hostages, we get a panel of Aunt May's friend being defiant with the thug holding them prisoner. And he proudly declares, "I'll see you in Hades."
We'll see you in hell.
Then, with a clathoom, Spider-Man blasts through the wall and takes out the goon with the gun. Now the hostages are safe, so Spider-Man goes after Jack-O-Lantern. Jack cuts the lights and tries to take advantage of the darkness for a sneak attack, which really isn't a very wise plan for a guy whose head is constantly on fire. It's hard to hide the light of a fire in the dark. Spidey sense,
please do not start calling it my Peter tingle,
and the light from Jack-o'-lantern's flaming head help Peter dodge all of his attacks. When Jack threatens to get him with his pogo platform, Spider-Man at least rightly calls it a cornball contraption. Which is worse, the pogo platform or the Cobra Pogo Ballistic Battle Ball?
Joe's got trouble. He's got his bag. Pogo's got a pogo pen and top in bag.
Pogo's loaded for action.
It's the new Cobra Commander.
Or what about the Pogo Ball? Remember that toy?
Pogo ball is what they call it when you're hopping and bopping everywhere.
The good thing about the Pogo platform that makes it better than the Pogo Ball or the Pogo Ballistic Battle Ball is that he could just flip it over and use it as a sombrero if he ever needs a disguise or something. So Spider-Man rips a steel door out of the wall and hucks it at Jack-o'-lantern. And Jack realizes he probably better get out of here in case Spider-Man doesn't miss the next time. He hops out a window,
Pogo ball is what they call it.
but Spider-Man thwips out a web and yanks him back with the help of a flagpole. And crack! He hits Jack-o'-lantern with all he's got. Spider-Man relishes in the fact that since Jack wears a protective helmet, he got to hit him as hard as he could. Usually he has to hold back because his proportionate strength would kill anybody who isn't wearing a pumpkin helmet. Okay, now it's time for the traditional Marvel end of the story kick in the balls. Peter hurries to Aunt May's house, saying he got there as soon as he could, and that he heard on the radio that Spider-Man resolved the hostage situation. But Aunt May ain't buying it. She's furious with Peter for not coming right away like he said he would. She called his job wondering what was taking so long, and they told her he left a while ago. So the only reason he wasn't there was because he had something better to do than be there to comfort his old aunt. She tells him to just go away, and there's nothing he can do because he can't tell her that he's Spider-Man and he's the reason old Nathan is coming home safe tonight. Doing that would only make things worse. Pretty harsh. Being Spider-Man is cool, but it also sucks. Anyway, there's your two comics for the first appearance of Jack-o'-lantern. Since 1981, Jack-o'-lantern has had a long and twisted history. He has gone on to assume the mantle of the Hobgoblin, and several other people have assumed his role over the years. There have also been two separate styles of Jack-o'-lantern. The first one, like our man making his first appearance in the comics we talked about today, used technology like body armor and concussion grenades and protective helmets to create the Jack-o'-lantern persona. More recently, a few Jack-o'-lanterns have sold their souls to Mephisto to gain supernatural powers to manifest the Jack-o'-lantern persona. Our figure here is a much more modern version of Jack. He comes with this flaming broom to ride through the sky on rather than a pogo ballistic battle ball.
Cobra Pogo, G.I. Joe Slam and figures sold separately. Go, Joe!
He's a really skinny guy and covered with a bunch of cool belts and straps, and this more spooky, modern, Soldier Soul to Mephisto style figure looks much cooler as a Halloween decoration. Because he's so skinny, it makes it more likely that his limbs might be a little warped and bent. On mine, one of the legs bends weirdly around the knee area, but I think some heat could fix that. I thought he'd look cool with a bunch of flame action going on all around him, so I tried my hand at making an explosion out of cotton balls that I've seen a lot of people do. Glue them to a clear plastic cup, then lightly paint them with some black spray paint. Spread out the cotton balls to give the explosion an interesting shape, and put a tea light underneath to create a flickering flame. I made a little hole in the cup to thread the stand post out to set the figure on. Jack-o'-lantern's skinny legs have such tiny gaps at the hip connection that I can't use one of my usual homemade stands, so I had to jerry-rig this one up with a coat hanger that I found. And there he is, flying above a flaming explosion, a great toy-centric Halloween decoration for an interesting comic book character. Hope you enjoyed the show. Please like, comment, and share. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Big Anklevich on Toys.